Okay, Shem Hashem Na'aseh v'Natzliach. Today, B'ezras Hashem, I'd like to dedicate tonight's shiur for the complete and speedy recovery of a dear friend, Mordechai Merdad ben Evelyn. May Hashem spend him a speedy recovery. B'toch Shar Cholei Yisrael. Amen. Tonight, we're going to be learning a very important melacha. The next melacha on the list is called Lash. Lamed Shin, Lash. Lash means kneading. Kneading is Kneading, kneading. And this is the next step in the construction of the Mishkan, which is, as we keep on talking about, the dyes were so important because that's how they created these colors to be able to color the curtains of the Mishkan. And part of the process was after they would grind those seeds into a fine powder, they would mix it with water and make it into a thick paste. And that's really what Lash is all about. Lash means when you take small particles and you introduce a liquid medium into those particles and make those particles into a thick paste. So if you can imagine flour that you mix with water, and you make it into a dough. So the flour loses its appearance. You don't see flour anymore. You see a dough. The water changed the flour into something new, into something different. And now it looks like a dough. So that's the melacha of Lash. And whenever you do that, whenever you take particles, small particles, and you convert them into a solid mass or a semi-solid mass by introducing a liquid into them, so that will be considered the melacha of Lash. Now that doesn't have to apply only to foods. Like we're saying with the dyes, it's not foods. But let's say a person wants to build, a sand castle. You go to the sand, you pour water into it, you make it into a nice big, thick, right? A thick substance that now you can, make into one big item. It binds the little granules of sand together, right? Or mud. You want to take the water and put it into the dirt and make mud out of it, right? So now it becomes one big piece of mud, right? Any type of binding of little particles through liquid. It doesn't have to be water either. It could be anything. It could be milk, it could be juice, it could be honey, it could be milk. I said no. Anything, right? That will be considered this melacha. Clear? So far, so good?
So you can't make a sand castle. You can't
right.
Make oatmeal.
We're going to talk about all these examples. Sorry, what's some other question also?
I just wanted to know more practical actual things.
We're going to talk a lot about these types of examples. Welcome. So I'm going to confess this melacha is a little bit harder to define the rules about this melacha. A lot has been said amongst the poskim, and it's a little bit difficult to define exactly why in this case yes, in that case no. I'm going to try my best. But you should know that there is a lot that is written on this subject, and B'ezras Hashem, tonight what I'm going to be doing is actually following many Sephardic poskim. I'm going to be presenting you really the opinion of the Ramah, which is the Ashkenazi Mahalech. The reason that I'm doing that is because the Ben Ish Chai follows the Ramah over here, the Kaf HaChaim follows the Ramah, the Or L'Tzion, Chacham Ben Zion Abba Shaul follows the Ramah. And what the reason that I'm explaining this now is because what I want to explain is that the extra stringency that we're going to be talking about isn't really that hard to follow. So being that we're talking about potentially a violation of a Torah rule, so it's important to try and incorporate that so that we are steering clear of any problems according to all opinions. So that's the idea so far. Let us begin. The Examples of lush. Let's talk about some basic examples where I think we can all agree would be problematic. Let's talk about, for example, baby cereal, okay? Person wants to make baby cereal for the baby on Shabbat. You have little small particles, basically, and you put either milk in them, formula, or maybe some kind of applesauce, or all kinds of different things that you would mix into the baby cereal, maybe yogurt. The point is, though, that by you introducing that liquid into those particles of baby cereal, you are now binding them all together and they form one mass. So that may not be done on Shabbat because that's the concept of Lash. Instant mashed potatoes, another example. We're going to talk about permissible methods of baby cereal soon, but let's just give examples for now. Instant mashed potatoes, perfect example. You have this powder. You take hot water, you put it into the powder. That would be a great example because now you have mashed potatoes. So all that powder basically dissolved into the water and united with the water and now gave you mashed potatoes. So it's a nice thick mashed potatoes. That's definitely considered to be lush. Instant oatmeal, another nice example. These are things that by introducing the liquid, the oatmeal binds together, and now it's you just made a solid basically out of this these particles. Yeah.
Oh, my question was just like could you do the oatmeal on Shabbat or are you cooking the oats?
So let's say it's a good question. Let's say that you could avoid the cooking by perhaps putting it into klish lishi or something. So still it would be a lush problem. Instant pudding, right? Again, a powder that you would potentially take and make it into something thick. These are all important things to talk about. So,
But I feel like you're cooking it.
right.
Forget about the.
That's exactly what she asked, right?
Yeah,
So
it's
the
like
point is that let's assume that there's a way of getting around the cooking part. You're right. If it's a cooking problem, then it's a problem regardless, 100%. Okay, good question. Any time that you make a thick paste by either adding oil or vinegar, let's say into finely chopped radishes, cucumbers, carrots, you put oil, vinegar, and now that it becomes one kind of thick paste, that would be a problem of lush. These are things that come up.
Is making tahina
Ooh, that's a good one. We'll get there. The answer is most definitely, right? We're gonna have to figure out if there's a way to do it. You're right. Good question.
What if you just add lemon juice and olive oil to tahina?
Yeah,
Is that
we're gonna
a
talk
problem?
about it. We'll get there. Zeh Hashem.
If let's say you have the tahina already, but just.
We're gonna get there, 100%. There's some rules we have to talk about first. So, like I said before, what I'm about to present to you is the opinion of the Rama. But again, the Rama over here is the reason that I'm telling you his position is because the Ben Yishchai follows it, Kaf HaChaim follows it. Chacham Ben Sion says that even the Sfaradim should follow this opinion, which is a stricter opinion. So therefore, that's why I'm presenting you with this opinion tonight, even though it's the official Ashkenazi opinion. And the reason is it's not so hard to follow, even though it's stricter. It's just one additional thing that we need to know. So therefore, the following is what we need to know. First of all, we may not make a thick mixture on Shabbat. It's called blila ava. A thick mixture like a paste, we're not supposed to make that on Shabbat. That's the first part of what the Rama holds. You cannot make a thick paste on Shabbat.
What's it called?
Blila ava. You are allowed to make a blila raka, which means a thin paste, meaning a liquidy type of, not paste, a liquidy type of a mixture.
Blila what?
There's blila ava, which means a thick paste, versus blila raka, which is a thin mixture. which is loose. In other words, it's not thick. Now, the blila hava is a problem pretty much always, except for a couple of exceptions that we're going to talk about shortly. The blila raka is going to be okay if we do what's called two shinuim, two changes. The two changes have to do with, number one, how you introduce the liquid into those particles, and then how you mix the liquid and those particles. If you deviate from the normal way in which you would normally do it, in both of those ways, then you are clear. You're good to go. Again, provided it's a blila raka, a loose mixture, not thick.
What was the second one?
Okay, so there are two areas that we need to change. The first area is how you introduce the liquid to the particles. We're going to change that around. And the second area we're going to change is how you would normally mix it. So for example, if let's say the way that normally you mix, let's say baby cereal with whatever liquid you put in there, formula, let's say.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah,
There's different forms of baby cereal.
yes.
Like there's wheat baby cereal, there's oatmeal baby cereal, there's
Okay.
rice baby cereal. Does any of that matter? Or it doesn't matter because it's all.
I think the general idea is, are you making it into a paste or not, like a thicker? In other words, these cereals are all like very powdery, right?
Yeah.
You have to mix them and they become like a thick paste.
Would it make any difference if you added a fruit to it first before you added the water?
If you added
Like mash?
so you
Yeah,
put a
well,
fruit
like,
there.
Because you.
So
if it's a
is
powder,
it
if you add a
becoming,
mashed
is it
banana
binding
to it,
anymore? Does it change the fact that is it no longer binding it together?
You're binding it from the fruit, not from water. And then you add the water to it. Just an idea.
No, I'm trying to follow. Is the fruit, what is the fruit changing? Is it not becoming a paste anymore?
It's becoming a paste, but not from a liquid, from a solid.
Are you saying the fruit is,
Like if
You're
I
not
mash a
putting-
banana with, let's say I put the powder and then I mash a banana and I mix it and then I add the water to it.
so the fruit is what's binding everything together in the beginning?
And then the water's kind of making it thinner.
I think it's still a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, from what I know. It's a good point. It's a good question. From what I know. So let's just take it step by step. What is you have to ask yourself, first of all, what is the way I usually put the liquid in? Do I first put the cereal and then I put the formula or applesauce or whatever it is that I put in there? If that's what I normally do, then what I'm going to do on Shabbat is I'm going to put the applesauce or formula or milk or whatever it is first, and then put the cereal. So I'm going to change the order that I introduce the liquid. Is it this way during a weekday? Okay, so I'm going to put the opposite in first on Shabbat. That's deviation number one. Okay. So remember, once you make a shinui, it's already only forbidden midrabanan. So now the rabbi said, okay, you're going to deviate now even another way. You're going to deviate even in how you mix it. Okay, so the rabbis weren't lenient, were lenient, and they didn't make a gezerah on that anymore. So now, step two, how do you normally mix it? Do you normally mix it by stirring, normal stirring that you would normally do? So then over here, instead, you could do a couple of different things. You can either cover it and shake it like that, or if that's not convenient, you could simply take your spoon and mix it. Some say you need to use the handle of the spoon, crisscross, meaning I go like this, 1, 2, 1, 2. So it's an odd way of mixing it. And if I do an odd way of mixing it, so that's a shinui in the way that I am mixing. And at that point, so long as you add enough liquid that it's loose and not thick, then you're good to go according to all opinions. All opinions.
So what's considered thick or loose?
Loose means that it needs a container. It's like liquidy.
Oh,
Okay.
And tahina.
right?
Yeah, liquidy tchina. Now look, I know the problem here. And Baruch Hashem, the Chavetz Chaim knew the problem here too. And he said, what if you have a case where, what can you do? You can't prepare it like that, liquidy. You know, the kid needs the baby cereal and he likes it thick. He doesn't drink it like liquidy like that. So the first solution is try and prepare it before Shabbat. Try and have it ready before Shabbat. That's the first solution. See if that works. If that works, beautiful. If even that does not work, so the Chafetz Chaim writes that if push comes to shove and you need to make it thick for the baby, as long as you're doing these two deviations, it's still okay.
I go back.
Clear?
to what you said earlier.
Sure.
When you said like adding some sort of liquid to like very finely chopped vegetables.
Yeah.
How finely chopped is like a normal salad? Would that be a problem?
A normal salad.
Like if you like chopped like
No. So that's a great question. A normal salad is not going to be a problem. So this is a good way to lead into this idea. Anytime that the pieces are bigger, they're not like particles. Anytime the pieces are bigger pieces. So for example, like a regular, when you cut a salad, tomato, cucumber, lettuce, if you put dressing and you mix it all up, that's not called lush. And the reason that's not called lush is because lush is when you bind, you take the liquid binds them together. Over here, you're not binding them. They're just kind of together. It's a very good point. I think that because of that point, it'll also allow us to talk about some other examples that I wrote down over here. Very important.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Chafetz Chaim opinion, is that only for baby food? Like if
So-
a baby needs it, if it's for a midst, like
For a baby, correct? For meaning like a circumstance where you don't have any other option.
okay, so the Chafetz Chaim doesn't say that for general. He says it for.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, and there's one more to add to that, by the way, before I move on to this subject. So again, let's just recap before I'm all over the place. The idea is that that the Chavetz Chaim writes in the Shara Tzion, he says if you can't do anything other than do it on Shabbat, because let's say the baby just won't eat it unless it's warm right now. And it needs to be thick and warm right now. So again, he says, as long as you do the two deviations, you are in the clear, which means, again, switch the order that you normally introduce the liquid. If first you put in the cereal and then the liquid on a weekday, so on Shabbat, do the opposite. Put the liquid, then the cereal. How do you normally stir it? You stir it like this, so then don't do that. Either shake it in a container like that, or you can crisscross, and that will be good enough, even if it's thick.
Well, what would you say if your kid, let's say you have like a 3-year-old or 4-year-old who just wants it and says like, I mean, I used to have this, who would say, Mommy, I want baby cereal, and it's Shabbat.
Okay.
And like what
It depends. Will he eat
Like if-
something else?
he'll eat, yeah, like, but like, like, what do you, I don't know, like, no, it's Shabbat, I can't make it for you, or like,
Yeah, so if he'll eat other things, you can distract him,
right.
So then distract him. But if he's adamant, he's not putting anything unless it's that
Right,
baby
I'm saying
cereal.
if he's like, what do you mean, why can't I have it? Well, like, if he just keeps going. I don't have that now, but I used to have that, so I'm wondering, like,
It depends. If you really will not eat anything else besides for that, then you have this heter from Chavetz Chaim. But he'll eat something else, so then give him something else. Now, one more place where the Ben Ish Chai says that you can rely on this idea is for the sake of a mitzvah. For example, let's say that the night of the Seder fell out on Shabbat. It's night of Pesach, and you forgot to make the charoset. So you've got all kinds of things you have to put in there. You have to get some, I don't know, wine in there, dates in there, all kinds of different things. So again, if you have to introduce a liquid and mix it, so he says that for the purpose of the mitzvah, you'd be allowed to make it thick. But again, you have to deviate from the way you'd normally put the liquid in, switch the order around from the way you would usually do it. Number two, you should mix it in a different way than you normally would. By the way, also included in a deviation is making a smaller amount than you usually would make. If you make a smaller amount than you would usually make, that also counts as a deviation. So that's important to be aware of as well. We're going to talk about that deviation when we talk about Techina. That's like, that's important to know. Okay, yes.
So just to be clear, if you're making a thin mixture, it's not an issue. You could always make a thin mixture.
With both changes.
Oh, so these both changes are just for thick mixtures for these cases that the Chafetz Chaim is giving a heads up.
Correct, which is when the kid, he won't eat anything else.
Got it.
Some kind of real situation like that. Or, like the Ben Ish Chai says, for a mitzvah, like making the charoset. Yeah.
So the smaller amount is in addition, or you could do smaller amount and do the order reverse. You know what I mean?
So the smaller amount will be, let's say, instead of the reverse order of how you normally put it in, and then you would have to mix it differently.
It's in addition to it.
In other words, instead of having to change the order around,
Right.
just make a small amount, right? And then when you mix, you'd have to mix it differently.
So
It's
that-
in place of the first deviation. Yeah.
oh, so that's only, that you could switch that only with
Yeah. So instead of that, you could, let's say, I want to have a small amount. Something very small.
so
Not,
you can't change, you can't replace the mixing factor.
that's where it would, that's what it would replace.
The mixing?
No,
Oh, no.
the
order.
order. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So we mentioned before that when we're dealing with big chunks, like we said, a salad, so then the idea of lush doesn't apply to this because of the fact that it's not really binding the salad together to form a mass. It's just there, right? The liquid is just kind of on top of everything, but it's not binding it all together. So for that reason, if let's say you have some, these yogurts, you have to, the key is you have to bind. In order for it to be a problem of lush, it needs to bind everything together. These yogurts that have like the cookies on top or the oatmeal on top or these things, I wouldn't think that that's a problem of lush. Because even when you open up the top and put it inside and mix it all up, it's just in the yogurt. The yogurt is not binding this piece of cookie to that piece of cookie to the, you know what I'm saying? It's too small of an amount that the yogurt should like form a mass of cookies together now. You understand? If let's say I'm putting in a tremendous amount of these cookies so that now it's like one big mass of cookie and yogurt together combined, right? Then that would be a problem, right? But here it's just a small amount of either whatever they have there, oatmeal, cookies, M&Ms. You know what I'm saying? It's not binding the M&Ms together. You hear what I'm saying?
What about marshmallow fluff and Rice Krispies?
That's good. That's
Would
good.
that be like
Okay. So right, marshmallow fluff and Rice Krispies. That's a nice one.
Rice Krispie treats? Like,
Yeah. Okay. Let's say what do they have?
Would that be
Marshmallow with Rice Krispies or peanut butter. Some of
yeah,
these
like
things.
Peanut butter, chocolate.
Okay, so we'll get to that. That's a good question too. That's a good question. Let's get to that. Great question. Yes.
So if I want to make salad dressing, let's say, so I'll put olive oil, balsamic vinegar, a little bit of mustard, and then I'll chop a little bit of a shallot inside of that. It
Okay.
doesn't necessarily bind, but if I put too much, maybe that's not.
Is that like a kind of, again, shallot is like an onion type thing? Right,
Exactly.
okay, so it's not, then you mix it up, you shake it together,
Is the mustard and the oil count? Because that's a binder, the mustard, or the oil.
Right.
but is it becoming thick?
Kind of.
Thicker, like everything will become thicker than their natural form, except for
the
No,
mustard.
but then they're not small particles becoming thick, it's the liquid, two liquids.
Mhm, mhm. Is the overall mixture becoming thicker?
yeah.
But is it still, let's say if you pour it, does it come out?
Yeah,
Okay, so in that case, you would just need to, do what we're saying, you switch the order around. Whatever you do normally, right? You would shake it, that's how you normally shake it, that's how you,
or no, I normally just mix it with a spoon.
okay, fine, so just shake it and then you're good to go. Yeah,
And is it better not to make salad dressing on Shabbat?
no, why? If you have a permissible way of doing it, that's good, you're very good. Okay. So, a couple of important points to think about. Just to give you a couple more examples of these types of things. For example, let's say you want to put strawberries, bananas and stuff, mix it in like a cream, something like that. I don't know what they mix it with. It's not binding it, right? So therefore you wouldn't have this problem, correct? We're not binding.
So it gets into it, becomes a liquid.
Becomes a liquid?
Like if it's room temperature, like at like whipped cream,
Whatever.
it becomes.
Sour cream, whipped,
Oh,
I don't know,
sour cream.
whatever it may, I don't know, whatever you want to put it in. Right? So the point is, it's not binding them together, it's just kind of sitting in it. Correct? Okay. So far, so good? Great. Whenever you have big chunks, that's what I wanted to mention before. Let's say you have potato salad with, some kind of, you want to mix some mayonnaise in there. What's it called?
Potato with eggs and
Potatoes and,
mayonnaise and.
no, they always put
Pickles.
pickles, yeah,
Pickles.
they always put pickles in there, right? So again, these are big chunks. When
Is
you
that
put mayo
okay?
into it, you're not, again, it's just like the salad. You're not binding them. It's just kind of going on to each thing, giving it flavor. Again, vegetable salad with dressing, same idea. Tuna that's not fine, that's not chopped in like a very fine, small tuna, just like regular chunks of tuna, right? So you're allowed to put some mayo in there, right? Now, some want to say that when you put mayonnaise
But I
into,
feel like mayonnaise does bind.
that's fine, but I want to express one thing. Some want to say that mayonnaise is interesting. Whenever you have anything that is congealed, which mayo is basically, it's a little bit different than the average liquid, because if you just put it somewhere, it just stays there. Just kind of, plop it there and it stays there. So some want to say that in that case, there is no real introduction of a liquid here, because this is not really called a liquid, it just sits there. So therefore, step one doesn't need to happen with any kind of liquid like mayo. If let's say you had honey like that was like a block or some kind of like congealed thing, so then there's no real introduction of liquid, and this is the opinion of the Pri Megadim. He writes this. So all you would need to do when you want to mix something with, let's say, mayo, is you would simply need to change around you would need to change around how you mix it. So instead of, let's say, mixing it like this normally, which you would do, instead you would use the crisscross method or shake it in a container. Yeah.
Why specifically do we change around the way we mix it and not like the order? Is there a reason?
In this case, yes, because the mayo is not a liquid. The whole idea of changing around the order is that you have a liquid that you're introducing into these particles, and we're saying, okay, switch around the liquid. Instead of it being the normal way you do it the opposite. Here, there's no liquid. That's what he's saying.
Then what, sorry, one more question. With the other case of the smaller amount, like it make less oatmeal than usual, that's a shinui. Could you do that with the order? You said you can't. Is there a reason for that?
That heter comes to replace the idea of the order.
Okay.
So it's coming instead of that. Yeah. Over here, it's not, the point that he's making is it's not even a liquid in the first place.
Okay.
So there's nothing to change around. There's no introduction of a liquid.
So then,
What?
so then what's the issue? It's binding the tuna, it's just.
Correct.
Thinking
correct.
that's,
Correct. So if it's a very thin, chopped, like really small piece tuna, then you'd have an issue because you're binding. But if it's bigger chunks,
like solid albacore.
yeah, like
versus
big
chocolate.
chunks of tuna, so then already we're saying, look, I'm not binding it. It's just sitting here. It's sitting there. It's a piece here, a piece there. So it's a light.
Right.
It's a light type of. You're just kind of putting mayo in it, but you're not binding it. If it's like a real tuna salad that we're familiar with, that's like you're really mixing it all together. You know what I'm saying? So that would be an issue. But if it's like bigger chunks, then you would have more of a heter. This comes up also with making eggs and liver, chopped eggs, right? Egg salad or chopped liver. No, you guys don't make this stuff? Wrong crowd.
I made egg
Right.
salad.
Right? Egg salad.
But I feel like it's better to make these things before Shabbat.
Correct. That would be the
Like, when
best
I
thing
make
to do.
salads, I make it before Shabbat.
Correct. That would be the best thing to do. You're avoiding the issue. You're avoiding any kind of issues by doing it before Shabbat, 100%. So yeah, if you would make the chopped liver before Shabbat, you definitely wouldn't have any issue.
I'm not a liver person.
You're not a liver person, okay? If you leave you leave the liver chunks a little bit bigger, you leave the egg pieces bulkier, you won't have this issue. You understand? It's only when it comes down to really small pieces of liver, of eggs, etc. Okay, yeah.
Is this why when they say like when you make a salad, like you should cut the pieces bigger? Is it from this Melacha?
So actually that has more to do with tochen, because over there we said that unless you're doing it for right before the meal, if you're like say doing it for a couple of hours from now, you have to leave the pieces a little bit bigger, because otherwise it's called grinding for later, which is no good. You have to, yeah. Okay, beautiful. Okay, excellent. We mentioned already mixing water and sand is a problem, mixing water and powder to make any kind of paste is a problem, mixing plaster is a problem. Some say, actually, I saw for the first time in Rabbi Ribiat's book, he is unsure, but he says to stay away from it. He holds that Play-Doh is a problem of Lash. Play-Doh. Because he's first of all, because Play-Doh is actual dough, and it's for playing for the kids, but it is dough. For example, on Pesach it would be considered chametz. But when you knead a dough, you play with the dough, right? That's called Lash. You're taking whatever liquid has already been in there, and you're pushing it further in. So he held that that's a problem. Rabbi Ribiat in his 39 Melachot book.
Oh.
Yeah.
This is what sorry, I missed that part. That's what you're,
Sorry?
is that what we're following tonight?
No. I was saying that the general idea is that over here, many Sephardic poskim go with the opinion of the Rama over here. So that's why I'm explaining his opinion.
And that's following that book is,
Yeah, that book is following that too, correct.
So all of us, like everyone believes we can't play with Play-Doh on Shabbat.
I don't know that. I don't know that that's correct, but I'm just bringing it up to bring awareness about it. Okay,
So, and we can't also make a sand castle. We can't.
correct, because if
play
you're
with the
mixing
sand
water
stuff.
with the sand to make a mass of sand or of mud or etc., stuff like that, that's a
Like,
problem
if
too.
you're on the beach or on vacation, you can't play- you can't play, your kids can't they can't play with the sand.
Right,
What
right.
about walking on the beach?
Walking on the beach is great, no problem.
If like the water comes and it's fine. It's not-
Walk on the beach. And we spoke about the idea that if, let's say, somebody needs to go number one on the dirt or on the sand, we said that that's okay too. We learned that when it came to this, I will have to tell you, is actually not like the Ben Ish Chai. Ben Ish Chai says that a child or whoever it may be that needs to go number one on the dirt is not allowed to go on the dirt. Why? Melechet Lash. He's kneading the soil, making it into a mass by introducing a liquid into it. So I must tell you that Chacham Vadia and others, and Chavetz Chaim as well, they hold that that's not so. That you are allowed to do that. Okay, so very good. Now, the question was asked before about tchina, making tchina. So the problem with making tchina on Shabbat is that when you introduce a liquid into the big blob of tchina that's inside, so what happens is that eventually that liquid that you put in becomes thick itself. Now, it's true that ultimately down the road it's going to become much more thin, but for that moment, the liquid that you're putting in, by mixing it with that mass of tchina, actually becomes thick. So some want to say that for that reason, it's a problem, and therefore you can't make tchina on Shabbat. But I did see one sefer say that what you could do is do the following. Take out from that blob whatever you would need for your meal right now. So it's a smaller amount than necessary, a smaller amount than you would usually take, I mean to say, whatever is necessary for you. So not more than that. So that's shinui number one. You're taking a smaller amount and you're putting water in that container that you put the amount of the tchina that was there. And then what you do is you simply shake it up like that. So you did two shinuyim. You took a smaller amount and you also shook it. And that way, whatever happens to it, it just becomes like a liquidy tchina right away. So you don't have to stir it in a way that the liquid becomes thick and then it eventually becomes thin. That problem of it being thick is a problem. So instead, like I said, what you do is you simply take what you want, whatever necessary amount you take, put it in a container, put water into it, close the container, shake it, and then you have your tchina.
Now, let's say you take it out of the container, can you use a spoon to fix it up?
What's that? One more time?
Let's say you do everything you just said,
Yeah,
and then when you pour it into, let's say you're serving bowl,
yeah.
can you use a spoon to fix it? Say it's
As long
not
as you
very
do it
warm.
gently. As long as you're not, as long as you do it gently. When you do it gently, so then it doesn't look like
Is it
Lash.
zigzaggy also, or does it?
No, just very soft. Yeah,
I mean, I don't usually make tahina. I just like to add oil and lemon juice and like maybe a little garlic in it. So it,
to what,
Makes it
an already
thinner.
pre-existing tchina,
yeah,
no problem.
that's fine. Like if you're making the mixture.
You're not making it,
thinner,
you're making it thinner, right? You're not
it's
making it,
fine.
yeah. A very, yeah.
And then on Yom Tov, same thing, or?
On Yom Tov, you're allowed to do Lash. On Yom Tov, you're allowed to bake a challah, no problem.
So then
Yeah.
why do we talk about Pesach? What was that?
I was saying that
It
the
was
Seder
on
fell on
Shabbat.
Oh,
Shabbat.
Shabbat, oh.
Yeah, good question, yeah.
Wait, I missed the part. What's the problem with tchina if you're making it into a thin mix? If you're making it into like a thin mix?
So apparently what happens is that as you're making it at this
During the
big blob of
process.
tchina, right? You apparently the way it works is you pull some of it out and then you mix it with water. The water becomes thick
Oh, okay.
as you're doing it. So therefore you lose the you're doing lush by doing that. So it's a problem.
Wait, but then can't you say that about everything that you're putting water into that is at first thick and you're trying to thin out?
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
What about the marshmallow fluff?
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Good question. Good question. Okay, so just so that in mind, I wanted to just say one more thing, which is very important. Whenever a liquid has already been introduced to the mixture, so if you want to then add more, you could add more because the liquid has already been there. For example, let's say that a person wants to make what they call mayonnaise. Familiar with this? What? Yeah?
What is?
I'm talking to the wrong crowd.
What's the brand?
Gefilte fish, what do you eat with gefilte fish?
Crane mixed with mayonnaise.
Very good. So you want to have crane on the gefilte fish, right? You know what crane is, no?
I don't know what a brand is, but I can't give it.
Crane, no? Never what? Crane is horseradish. Yeah, exactly. Horseradish. So they call it crane in Yiddish. So when you want to eat crane, a lot of people, they like to have some mayonnaise on the crane. Now, what's going to happen is that you mix the mayo with the crane, and the mayo gets like thicker, or the crane gets thicker. It's a mixture now. It becomes like one body. So is that okay? The answer is yes. Since they already put vinegar into that horseradish ahead of time, so if you want to continue the mixture by adding more stuff into it, it's no problem. You understand? So whenever there was a liquid already introduced into those small particles ahead of time, to then go ahead and add more into it is not a problem.
So
Yeah. Yes.
So that's why you could thin out sashimi.
So that's why. So that would be a reason why it should be allowed. The problem is that the water, as you're mixing it, gets thicker. So you're right. In general, the goal is to make it thinner, and that's why it should be allowed. But the problem they have is that as you mix, you make it thick. So instead of doing it that way, what we're suggesting is put it in a container and just shake it. And that way you don't have that problem.
So if you made baby cereal before Shabbat, you already added liquid to it, and then on Shabbat you want to add more liquid.
Beautiful.
Thin it out,
Beautiful example.
you can't.
Correct. Because you already had added the liquid to those particles ahead of time. Correct.
Right.
Good. Important point.
But you're not recooking it? or something?
You have to do it in a way that you're not cooking it. Correct.
Like
Or
instant
in a
noodles.
2 cup, like a.
Yeah, kli shlishi, stuff like that. We'll get there, B'ezras Hashem, next Melacha. Next Melacha is the big one. Bishul. That one could take weeks.
Is gum an issue?
Of Lash, I don't think so. Okay,
If it has like candy in it, like sparkling, like, I don't know, like
I don't
crackling.
think
candy
so.
that-
I don't think so. So now getting to your question about the Rice Krispie treats and
Marshmallow fluff.
marshmallow
peanut
fluff and
butter,
stuff. Good
Nutella.
question. So yes, so it definitely does seem that those items would be binding the things together. Most likely you should not do them on Shabbat, right? That's
It's
something,
good to know.
yeah,
I didn't
100%.
know. I mean, I never did, but I was.
Because what you're doing is you are binding those Rice Krispies to the fluff. And if you put a lot of Rice Krispies in them, so then you really are making them into one mass. It's a problem. Again, if it's a few scattered Rice Krispies, I wouldn't see that as any different than, let's say, those cookies and the yogurt. It's just a few scattered here and there. It's not binding them, right? So therefore, if you put a few Rice Krispies here and there on top of marshmallow fluff, that's not binding it. Talking about, like you're saying, where you're actually making a Rice Krispies treat by putting so many Rice Krispies together.
With
and
your
then
kids. I don't
with
know,
your
it's like
kids,
as an
yeah.
activity.
Correct. I believe that you are right. You should do that on Shabbat. Yes,
But can you say that the marshmallow fluff is a liquid? It's so thick.
It's
correct. So that
It's
would be
solid.
that. You're probably right. It's not really a liquid. But it is a binding agent. It's like mayo, right? Which the idea is that if you really are binding something together with mayo, then you have a problem too, even though it's not liquid. You're right. Good point. Okay.
But if you do it with the shinoi, is that okay or not?
No,
To make Rice Krispies treats?
not really. No, I don't think so.
Like how you mix it?
Yeah, I don't think it.
Because it's
no,
thick, because it's thick.
correct. Okay. Okay. And again, naturally, this will only apply to thick mixtures. But if, let's say, you're mixing, coffee or some kind of powder, hot cocoa powder into a drink, and you're making a drink out of it, and of course, this would not.
But isn't that cooking?
Okay, so you're right. We're gonna have to assume when I mention these things, we're not cooking. We're doing it in a way where it's not considered cooking.
So what about slime? You know how children like to make slime?
That we'll get that
Is
another
that-
different time. Good question. Okay. Good. So let's say you want to make hot cocoa, coffee, reconstituted milk. No problem. Okay. Interesting. Fine. Spoke about all these. Right. So it's a little bit different with the Sephardic opinion, Shulchan Aruch, a little bit different. So therefore, I felt, if we could just be a little bit more machmir by doing 2 shinuyim, I think that we're good to go. So I hope it was clear. That's pretty much what I want to say tonight. If you have any questions, we could talk about it now. Yeah.
What about also like, let's say you like with ice cream, if you wanna like take like, I don't know, different kinds of toppings, put it in and like make it like a chiller or something like, would that also be like your binding?
So again, you have to analyze the situation. If it's a few scattered pieces of Oreos here and there, or what I'm saying, a few M&Ms here and there, I wouldn't call that binding. You understand? Binding means you introduce a liquid, it becomes a solid. I'll give you an example where this could come up. It's at the bottom of a cereal bag. There's like that powder, right? If you put like a couple of drops of milk in there, that could become like a little solid.
What about,
Yeah.
What about like ground flaxseed? Sometimes if we add water to it, and it becomes like congealed.
It has like the form of an egg, basically. If they make like a flax egg, it's a binder for sure.
So there you have it. Don't do it. Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm done. Thank you.
Rabbi, I have a question.
Yeah.